military incursion in Africa democracy is presently causing a lot of concerns and reactions from all over the world, and the recent being the Central African country of Gabon, where military men have taken over power. Just a few weeks after the one that happened in Niger Republic was generating concerns and people were talking about it. And interestingly, most of these countries are the French, the ones who got their independence from France. Coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, and of course, the recent being Niger Republic and Gabon, have undermined democratic progress in West Africa and in recent years. The military coup in Gabon followed what they called controversial elections in the country, which has been ruled by a father and son for over 50 years, since 1967, and President Ali Bongo has ruled Gabon since 2009, after he took over from his father, who was there for 42 years. Gabon is made up of less than 3 million people in population, and of course about 40 ethnic groups. Automatically, it can be deduced that that country has been under the rule of one ethnic group since 1967, something that called for concern. And now the military officers have said that they have seized power and that following what they described as the military were putting an end to the regime that was in place in 1967. And this is what will be my focus today on Viewpoint on your darling station. My name is Adibimpe Akindele, and of course I have two gentlemen who will be discussing that with me. They are big men in their different ways, but today they are political or public affairs analysts. It's nice to have you, Mr. Lekan Lajobi.
It's my pleasure once again to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And I also have my colleague, Tope Okowo. Good to have you.
Nice having you.
Many thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Gabon got independence from France in 1960, just like Nigeria, and it's maintained a close relationship with France, through which it got its independence. And since then, they have aligned with France in area of political and some other support, so that it's like they still get instructions from France to do whatever they want to do, and that is one of the reasons the military men, they are saying no, enough is enough. But then, do you accept that this is a total independence from France, Mr. Lajobi?
Well, thank you so much. Historically, it has been proven that colonization is a particular set of people, either through conquest, warfare, and all that, dominates other people or nationality, at least wanting to better their lots, so to say. That's the excuses that they've been giving. But we have found out that down the lane, it has not been like that, because even when they are colonized and they plan to either decolonize them or give them independence, there's still what we call economic dependence, which of course is what is termed now as the neo-colonialism. That's another, another nomenclature that is given to it, which means that yes, you might have political sovereignty, but your economic sovereignty might still be attached to the colonizers, the colonialists who actually took over. So one can say, at least, that yes, I think a complete departure from what it is when we define independence should be a complete break off from a particular country who has dominated the other for a long period of time, and giving them their freedom, so to say, to be able to rule themselves by their own methods of governance. But what we see today, especially in our African continent, it's a different ballgame entirely. Most of those colonizers, I think we have major three of them: the Lusophone countries, the Anglophone, and the Francophone. The British, the French, and the Portuguese were the major colonialists. But what do we see today? Yes, as much as most of the continents, most of the countries within the continent have their independence, how is it that they are are still tied to their mother's apron strings, if I will use that word, and in a manner with which they are still controlled, and especially economically interdependent or independent of all these other countries who still, said they have given them freedom. For instance, let's take Niger as an example, the one that had their coups in July. One sees that for about 60 years that they said have given them independence, there's still a mineral deposit in that country that is uranium, so to say, and I think they are the 7th largest deposits of uranium in the whole world. And in the last, 60 years or so, when they have given them the so-called independence, they are still the one, determining, the mining, the exploitation of these mineral resources at the expense of those people that they said they have given independence to. And these are the reasons why, in collaboration with some of the so-called natives, under the guise of democracy, one way or the other will come up and still use all these, exploit all these mineral deposits and use it for themselves at the expense of the people there, whereby they are deprived of what, of course, should have been a natural resource to them to be able to live a life worthy of a good standard. So one cannot say, as you have asked me, that, well, they are politically sovereign since they have got independence, but are they economically sovereign as a nation, whereby they're the ones that determine the exploitation, the use, distribution, sales of all the mineral deposits that are imbued in that place, which is, of course, naturally supposed to be theirs? These are many questions, are the reasons why all over the African continent there are still issues about what to do as regards what independence is, and neocolonialism and liberalism, which of course still gives them that chance. The 3 major players, for instance, in Africa, the Portuguese, the English, the British, and the French, they still do their businesses as usual here. And if you want to check this continent, you find out that they are rich in so many mineral deposits, ranging from crude to diamond to bauxite to uranium, and so to say, all over the globe. Even some agricultural products, so coffee and all that, you see all this in Mozambique and some other countries. So what actually happens is that these mother colonizers, they have not yet left us off the hook, and we are economically tied, to these people, and we still look up to them. In fact, in terms of currency units, you still find out that most of the African countries still measure their unit of currency in terms of dollars. So all these are many more as what they are still talking about as regards what it is. Are we going to redefine what independence is? Are we going to check if those people actually, just like what happened in South Africa for over a century, the apartheid period, whether they have been able to be free indeed, or they are still tied to these people's mothers' apron strings?
Now, I want to say something. It's a form of interjection, a bit of departure from what you said. System of colonization of France is quite different from that of Britain. That of France is assimilation. And that is where you see many, if you look at French national team, you discover that there are many blacks there. From Mali, from other African countries. So they still see those countries they colonized as part of them. In fact, most of them have unrestricted access. You can see N'Golo Kante, you can see Mbappe, you can see many of them who have. So their system of government, the system of colonization is quite different from that of British, that just allow, no, they don't allow it, they assimilate, they see them as French citizens. So, and that is why it is very difficult for them to divorce from their colonial masters.
Anyway, yes, as much as he said that, we know that for British is a system of association. But even whether assimilation or association, one still finds out that in one way or the other, through governance, you can still see the impact of all these people, not allowing them. Yes, even Britain, you can naturalize. There are so many people that, just like he has said, in terms of sports, if you are naturalized, because the sports, you can play for any country as long as they see that there's a talent that can be used. But beyond that, we are talking about the economic development of such countries. How far have they developed? Yes, the system might be different, but it's still neo-colonialism. Either it is assimilation through the French or association through the British.
Yeah, I saw a video, and it actually made me feel bad. And to an extent, I almost said, well, if military juntas are taking over, so be it, because you see that in some of these Francophone countries, they don't, as I said, politically and economically, they associate so much with those who colonized them,
Exactly.
and especially the French people. And their mineral resources, they don't own everything they have. They have to take permission to take loans, they have to take permission, they have to do a lot of things, and that's why I believe the military juntas are not happy with what's happening. But don't you believe there are a lot of foreign incursions in African countries to the detriment of Africans?
Well, you are talking of foreign incursion. I've said it earlier that France still see those countries as their extension. Not that you are looking at it as if they've got independence. No. To France, they have not gotten independence. They still see them as part of...
Is that not detrimental to Africans?
I don't know how you are going to
Because
define...
a lot
I'm
of
coming.
these countries,
I don't know how you're going to define
of
it.
these countries make their citizens go through abject poverty and a lot of problems.
Yes. I'm trying to explain something to you. That if you are an apprentice
Yeah.
and you get your freedom, you establish your own business, and from there you move on. You are no longer tied to the express spring of your master. But in that of France, it is not like that. They are still tied to the April spring of their...
Should it be so?
I'm not saying that is another question altogether. And if you look at it, the military juntas are just giving excuses for attacking democratic institution. It's not because we look at it, they will not say it's because of France that they are attacking. They are talking about the misgovernance in their country. They're not talking about, well, when they eventually take over, they have taken over now. They are now saying, yes, France, go, this, go. No. You look at it that Lekon just said earlier, that you look at denomination our money in form of dollar, in form of euro, pounds. When you look at it, you see that how many countries in the world are not denominating their currency along that line? Very, very few. So what I am saying, in essence, is that military incursion into body politic is not because French influence. No, it is because of the misgovernance in that country or in those countries. That is my own position on this thing.
Do you agree with that?
With what you have said right now, it's not really clear if he's saying that taking over and the coups are, legitimate or not. But you see, to be very candid with you, there are some basic facts that we have to put on the table to be able to analyze properly the topic at hand. First of all, what is democracy itself? And when is it that when a country has dominated the other for a very long period of time, they now said, okay, this country is free. And that when that country is free, you understand, the inalienable rights of citizens of that country should not be trampled upon by another country. So they are free now to govern themselves, choose representatives, and form the system of government by which they would rule. However, how often has this even happened when they say they have given them independence? For instance, most of the African country leaders, apart from the fact that there are coups here and there, they are sit-tight leaders. And it's one of the reasons why you would see someone who perhaps that we're talking about at the moment in Gabon, who already has been in government in the last 40 years or 42 years or more. And by the time he left, I wonder if that is democracy anyway, because democracy has a tenure which of course it has to follow, and is a periodic 2-term thing. And by the end of 8 years,
that is based on that of US.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying here.
Don't
even in
use
France,
US.
even in
Allow
French,
me to
let me
No,
make my
please
point.
make this point.
No, let me make my point. Even in French, you understand, they are not going to tell you will rule forever. Because, I mean, in a setting where you already said someone is given independence, there is a stipulated period of time. So in that place, if a man who already is at this moment even deprived of both mental and physical health, who has spent well over 42 years or more in that government, gave it to his son, and that's not even in Gabon alone. We have about 5 other countries in Nigeria and in Africa right now. You're talking about Equatorial Guinea. Theodore is there with his son since 1979, 44 years. We are talking about Congo. We have people that sit down there in 44 years. In Eritrea, they have spent 33 years. You understand? In Uganda, Museveni has been there for almost 40 years or more. So all these people who are sit-tight leaders, if of course they have been able to manage the resources and the economy of such countries that they said have been given independence, so to say, would have been easier to now contradict that, okay, well, it's not a democratic rule per se, but these people have held, others in hostage and depriving them of all they have done. I can't imagine right now when it is not monarchy, for instance, that we are practicing, that you can, relinquish power at the end of it all to your son or your daughter, as is done in Britain. But here, that's not the system. So these people, eventually, if you go further to check on how they have misgoverned that country, it's clear for us now to see how much money is touched in the house of the Bango when they went to check. And, all these monies are supposed to, be used for that country and the people of that country. So irrespective of whether it's a French colonized country or is British or is Portuguese, all we are talking about here is good governance and good life and the well-being of the people out there. But what we have seen in essence is that, even when we say the worst form of government is not better than democracy, it's still the best form of government. But how is democracy supposed to be practiced? And sometimes you find out that even under the guise of democracy, some people still practice authoritarianism in a manner with which they will sit down in government, use the apparatuses of governance in their own favor, abuse the rights and privileges of authority and power in that country. And at the end of the day, when the subjects get to a point that they can no longer take that, they take up arms or, if possible, revolt against the government of the day, which, of course, is what is the wave and the wildfire now going through the Francophone. And, of course, don't let's expect this if it's a news. Let everybody take to terms, because what the reason they are giving right now, whether you said is a pretext or real, what is the indices? How many people are in that country? Gabon, for instance, is an oil-rich country of about 3 million people, and they even produce more than 150,000 barrels of oil per day. In the last 48 years, or 56 years rather, of the Bangos dynasty in that place, what have become of the people, of the less than 3 million people in that place? So let's call a spade a spade. It's not a system of government. All over the world, there are different kinds of government. There are places where democracy is not practiced. China, they have their own system of government. In Britain, their form of government is there. Even monarchy is still represented in Britain. But what you would use to measure is the average standard of living of the people there. Are government actually allocating resources in a way with which the greatest number of people enjoy the greatest good? These are the things that we should ask ourselves. And, as things are going on in Africa, we keep asking again, those people that have taken over, why did they take over? Even if it's a wrong excuse that we think they are giving, how wrong is that excuse? Have we measured up to actually analyze what has gone wrong in Gabon in the last 56 years of this man's dynasty? So I don't think it's his own nation that he has built by himself. It's a nation that has got independence from France. And even if France still through assimilation, yes, most of these people now still speak, apart from the fact that there are 40 ethnic groups in Gabon, they still speak French as their lingua franca, But the truth is that language and all those things, as much as we know, even when a daughter leaves the father to get married, there's still what we call ni. Just to remember the father's name. I remembered, just on a lighter note, there was a man last week who gave out his daughter in marriage. And after a time, the people that were engaged there, and they now said, Baba, your daughter has ceased to bear your name. The man started crying. They had to start begging him. He said, no, but I said, but that's the woman, the lady is going to another person's house. Does not mean that the father's house or where she came from should completely be rid of, because they were the ones that brought her up to that level to be able to see. So what we are talking about here is that, yes, the participation of all these colonialists, one is not saying they can't relate. After all, international trade is there. So many other things are there in which we can relate. Some people are even forming blocks. Brexit has it before the change. We have BRICS. We have so many other nations trying to come together. We have the AU, we have the ECOWAS, so in so many ways that you can still relate. But that does not in any way jeopardize the fact that you have been an independent country. But yes, you can still relate with your mother country or your mother colonialist. Does not mean that country should not have gone well and should not have been governed to the extent that the people all there are deprived. The Nigerians, for instance, they walk across the border into Nigeria for survival. And you can imagine in the last 40, 50 years, even after we had treaty with them about how they are going to govern, we still find out that they live in abject poverty in that country. So let's call a spade a spade. It's not about the system of governance per se. It's not the formulation of policies. What about the implementation? And how has it benefited the people of this country, so to say? Those are the countries. Now we are on the 8th country. I wonder, and I won't going to predict whether it's going to be still more than that.
Don't scare me. You know what that means.
Well, let's just see it's going, the wave is going.
Mr. Okelwo, he has talked about, I was thinking about the kind of, we say we are in democracy in Africa. We do presidential system of government, which is by far very expensive than the parliamentary system of government. And then at the same time, the people who come sit tight, they hold on to power as if this is royalty or monarchy, where people have to give, the rulership is given from generation to another generation. Don't you think that it's this form of government that they say Obaship, there's an Oba, there's a king somewhere, the ruling family?
Even they are ruling house.
Don't you think that is what's affecting Africans?
No, I don't think so. I have said it, that major reason is misgovernance.
No, why they hold on to power?
Power itself corrupts. And many people don't want to leave power. We have seen even the example in Nigeria. There are a lot of examples in Nigeria. We have seen people who have brought their children to politics. We have seen former governors who have their children in the Senate. We have seen former senators who have their children in National Assembly or House of Assembly as commissioners. So the tendency is there that once you are in power, you want to bequeath it to your son or your children. So it's just like that. What do you call it? Former Senate president has his daughter as a commissioner, has his son in the National Assembly.
I'm saying that, is that right in this form of government?
What I'm telling you is that, did people vote for them? If people voted for them, so be it. But how did that election come into being? Is that election credible? Is it free and fair? If my son becomes governor after my tenure and people voted for him, so be it. But if that election is manipulated, that is the problem.
But the
what we are saying now, and that is what I'm saying.
Manipulated over the years.
That's what I'm saying.
The only family in
let me just tell you, we are just looking at that of Gabon. It's the same thing is not applicable in Niger. There are different reasons. What I'm saying is that the election in Gabon was manipulated according to the junta. And you see, we saw the video. People came out to jubilate. In Niger, people came out to jubilate. In all those places where there are military incursion, people came out to jubilate. Who are those jubilating? Are they not the citizens? Are the citizens who came out to jubilate, did they represent the majority of the people? There are a lot of intrigues in this thing that we have to look at. One, Mr. Lekan Olajebu said it earlier, that in China, they don't practice democracy. In Britain, they practice monarchical system of government and parliamentary, like that. So when you look at it, Africans must have to. Let me just give you an example of Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew spent 33 years to stabilize the economy, and the economy is Singapore is one of the giants, is one of the Asian tigers now, because the man stayed there, was able to revamp the economy. Look at this country that some of the governors went for training now. These African countries that was into Franciscan war for a long time. Burundi. Because the man stayed there, revamped the economy, stayed for a longer period, he was able, they are forgotten about the war. So I'm not talking about if people voted for them and they are doing the bidding and they are doing the will of the people, so be it. But a situation where even if you spend one term and you are not voted for, it's wrong. So what we are saying is that people must vote for their leaders. Now, if they have voted for them, must somebody now use them to rip them away, to deprive those who voted? So no, we shouldn't in any way justify military incursion into politics. Yes, some of the civilians are not doing well in terms of the way they get to power.
Describe what was happening in Gabon as democracy when the father and son have ruled for over about 50 years.
I have told you that the citizens, did they vote for them?
What's the process of
what is the process? So,
the electoral process?
Let me tell you,
the electoral process is most times when it is designed in a way, to actually benefit the people in power. And you continue to say that such democratic processes and ethos have not met the requisites that people see. For instance, in Nigeria, let's look at how the intervention of military since down the lane to where we are today. We would have seen that there's this transformation all through the process that we got to 1999. And we decided at that point, even after our decisions, we still find out that, yes, some of the people that have ruled Nigeria before, who were head of states through coups, two of them still came back and they became a president from head of states, now transformed into president because of the democratic process that we have undergone. But during the times that they were staging those coups, their excuses were the country, most of the people who were leaders, because we have interregnum along the line, they have misused the natural resources of the country. They talked about corruption, abuse of power, and all that, which of course is the excuse that they will give most of the times. But now in Nigeria, the problem now has moved from, we are saying it's a bygone thing right now. It becomes, there's a new norm of democratic rule in Nigeria, and as such, military intervention or incursion is an anathema, so to say. However, the processes of democracy that we undergo at the moment, people are still challenging, especially the electoral processes, yes, we do not have it to be a perfect thing, so to say, but at least people are still clamoring that, yes, it has to be improved upon, so that democracy...
More so when we have a number of names that we've been hearing for 20 years.
No, I want to give you an example, for instance. It's no excuse. When the processes are clear, I want to tell you the truth. That's why you would never hear names in America, for instance, of a president who actually came back again after he had gone. The process is clear and is giving room for other people, to represent their people in the best of their interests. So one would not say clearly that because people have voted for you, what about the processes, the electoral processes that led to those votes? Were they credible? Were they transparent, free and fair?
Do they have means? Did they have means of challenging that process? Is it through military incursion? You must challenge the process.
How else?
Okay, tell us
how else?
Okay, now
I
will give you a sample of Nigeria. In 70, I was a bit, I was wiser. Then, I was already conscious of my environment in 1979 when civilian came. I was there when Buhari took over. I was already in secondary school when Buhari took over. What was the excuse? Yes, Buhari was the head of the junta. What was the excuse he gave? He gave excuse of corruption. isn't it?
Abuse of power, corruption,
All those things.
and all that.
Now,
that's always it.
Now, in 2015, when he came back through civilian government, what excuse did people give for voting for him? That means military people will always have excuses, and when they get there, they will not do better. That's my point.
Well,
look, let me tell you, we are going to be alive now. The military junta has taken over in those areas. Have they been better? Have they fared better? Have they done well for the people of the country?
I expected at this point, yes, it's a viewpoint right now. I expected at this point we should be talking about the lives and the standard of living of those people in those countries. I made it clear earlier. I said, look, in a country, you made an example. When Lee Kuan Yew came in Singapore and he spent that number of years, to revamp the economy of Singapore, you used the word revamp. The economy, was it actually revamped or not? If it was revamped, nobody cares so much because the essence is good governance. For too long does not matter if you are giving people the dividends of democracy. And that's one thing that we must understand, that even when this sit-tight government... Let me quickly divert a little to what happened in Libya, for instance. And up till now, so many people of international diplomacy and relations knows that, and they're still regretting that. Why would Gaddafi, for instance, should have been killed? It is afterwards that people realized, you know how many years he spent there? But the truth of the matter is that what was the average lifestyle and the standard of living per capita income of Libya as an oil-rich company? People were having good lives. The greatest number...
That still pains me.
So till tomorrow, it is not about how many years. Lee Kuan Yew was able to do that. Libya, and at the time till tomorrow when they're saying that, okay, the guy has been killed, what was the reason that they gave? So I know that there are international politics still going on, and we have not been able to talk about that. Some people are saying that the coups are by proxy, that some grandmasters up there, like Russia, like US, are protecting their economic interests along that same lane.
That's why I talked about military incursion.
So these guys, you can only correct. Nobody is saying that. Nobody. Let's get it clear, that coup d'etats are legitimate. No. But the truth is that you have a situation where even democracy that we are preaching, that we say, oh, is the best form of government, the tenets of democracy has been undermined by those people who are sit-tight leaders, who refuse, to allow the people in that place to choose their representatives, who actually maneuver and manipulate the processes of elections and electioneering. So all these, in a way, even while you are giving it to those who say democracy must reign supreme in spite of the conditions, what happens to those conditions if they do not benefit the greatest number of people with a good life? So the people of these countries, about, I think, the 8th country right now, what we should be asking is, what is the average per capita income of that place, the standard of living, the unemployment rate, you understand, the unit of currency, and so on and so forth. So if we see all those things, one would say that it is not even whether the Bongo dynasty, for instance, have stayed there for too long that matters. But the fact that the people that they have governed in the last 56 years have little or nothing to show for, in terms of this global economy, for instance, there are no players at all. So all these so-called colonialists are still holding them down. In fact, they're the one, protecting them from outside, choosing sometimes people that will rule. Don't be surprised. I am not saying they will do better in any way, but most of them, you know what they do quickly? Look, we are going to transmute into a transition program for democracy. That's always what they will tell you. The same thing, the coups in Nigeria that we have had during the times of Obasanjo, Buhari, Babangida, immediately they will tell you that, okay, we have an agenda to transmute into a democratic governance. That's the excuse they give most times. Let's take, for instance, what happened during Babangida's regime. It came up to a point that, we were all amazed at his own strategy of trying to establish the foundation of democracy. He had two-party system, SDP, NRC. He built secretariats. He did everything possible to situate for us to believe that, yes, it was coming for real. At the end of the day, the election was annulled. So what I'm saying is that we should continue to see that governance beyond democracy, beyond monarchy, beyond all these systems of government that is being practiced all over the world, the evaluation of it is how has it affected the ordinary life of the people living in that country.
You have come to my point that I've been raising now, that is it the system of government that matters or the life of the citizens? That means if I were to have my way, I would have said, let Africa design their own system of government that best suits them. We should not be thinking about what other part of the world are talking about. China, for instance, is not practicing our own style of democracy. The system of democracy in Britain is quite different from that of their master, US. I mean, of their. So what I'm saying that each country
not
must
suffer under this form of government practice.
Each independent country must design its own system of government that best suits him or suits her.
Implementation.
That's what I'm saying. Let me tell you. We will say, if we have, let me just say this. If in democracy, we have always said that the worst form of democracy is better than military rule. That is just what people have been mouthing.
That's a lot of people don't believe that.
That's what I'm saying. That is what
are jubilating
systems over the years.
That's what I'm saying. But when you look at it, if a military man comes in, if a military man comes now, probably the National Assembly will be scrapped. We'll just have the president, the presidency, and all this kind of bogus system of government will have been reduced. And if civilian government are
and it would have been better for the people.
And what will have happened? That means a lot of money will have been saved for other development projects. So when we say let us have system of government that best suits us, we are not talking about military. We are talking about reducing the cost of governance that will free money for other development projects. What people are talking about unicameral system of in the National Assembly. Why are we having about 400 people? We have Senate, we have House of Rep, and we have with so many sitting down doing nothing. How many bills have they passed that have affected the life of the people? We have similar thing at the state level. So what we are saying,
coming back to what I said about presidential system of government and parliamentary system.
What I'm saying
in America,
I said that's why I said we should design. I said we should design our system of government.
America that we are emulating. They don't practice their own like this.
That's what I'm saying. That we should design our own system of government that best suits us. That we bring people into limelight. That will bring people to live a very good standard of living. You are saying that people live $1 per day. Less than $1. What's in Nigeria? How many dollars per day is our GDP? So we should not be decimating we should not be looking at our
system of government. Way forward now, because Africans are suffering.
I said we should design the system of government that best suits us.
It's not the system. Is it the system of government that will help?
Thank you very much. Even democracy itself, let's just wrap it up so far so that we don't talk. Academically, one will tell you that democracy evolved over a period of time, and that through feudalism, authoritarianism, you have oligarchy, you have all these before it comes. But the truth is that since it's an evolutionary trend, and up to now that we're talking about America that has had almost 2 to 3 centuries of that kind of system of government, in Nigeria, let's ask ourselves, even when the Constitution provides for a federalism, in the practice, for instance, even under the guise that we still practice democracy, is it a unitary system of government we practice? Or federalism? That one is there. The truth about all of this is that the policies, the system of government, are to be practiced by people, you and I. So the implementation, most of the times, is the issue. It is not that the system is really or intrinsically bad on its own. There is no system of government except those ones that are fascism, authoritarianism, and all that, which of course is that of Hitler, Mussolini, and all that. We know that is entirely different from what we are talking about. But even monarchy, theocracy, where we have in Saudi Arabia, for instance, they have. So what I'm saying in essence is that the practice of the system of government that we have, even now that we have imbibed the democratic system of governance in America, are we practicing it? Before we say we should go and redesign our own, even if we design and redesign, okay, African system of government, this, that, they are going to be implemented. Let's talk about what actually has not made those things work in the African system. The truth is that
the African factor.
One, let's be clear with ourselves. The mentality of oppression, dominance, sitting tight in government, and using all the paraphernalia of government as against the subjects to be able to perpetuate oneself in office and possibly transmit it to other generations is a malady that is generally concerned to most of the leaders in Africa. And when you see the trend, I gave you about five countries right now that have been there for 44 years, Congo, you did there, Eritrea, 33, and all of them, Uganda, Museveni, and all of them. They are there. Some of them have spent 44 years, but it still wouldn't have mattered
if they did well.
If they did well. So whether we change our system of government in Nigeria to Yorubanism or whatever you want to call it, the people are the ones that will represent. So far, so good. So far, so good. The implementation of most of this system of government is what we have issues with. He has given examples of nothing is wrong if your son becomes, if you have been a senator or a governor before, and your son becomes a member of the House of Rep or a commissioner in your state and all that. But the question is, yes, there's nothing wrong in it. Those people that we are copying, how many of them, then by statistics, their children or children's children have perpetuated themselves in office, one. Then two, the processes. I said how many?
That's
so
one in
I don't know if we have had about 40-something or 46 presidents or 48 in America. What I'm saying in essence is that if the processes are transparent, credible, acceptable by the people, you understand? That's one aspect. Secondly, when the implementation of such policies and system of government are carried out to the letter under the constitution and the rule of law of the land, and people are made to pay, when we have a criminal justice system that is viable, so that you will not do things with impunity and go free with it. So all these are the intrinsic values that we need to talk about beyond the system of government. All over the world right now, in China at a point, they said, they are working at their population, and they saw that it's becoming explosive. Are part of those people that have the greatest population in the whole world, 1.6 billion or more. Now we are 8 billion on the face of the earth. They said, okay, as couples, to maintain, for now, you are not going to have more than 1 or 2 kids, to maintain that economy. And after a time, they were able to transmute about 100 million Chinese within 10 years out of poverty. So these are countries who have vision and they plan ahead. In spite of the system of government, there is spirit of patriotism, there is loyalty to your nation, and at the end of the day, the nationhood and that cohesion is what matters most, not when we continue to practice ethnicity, when we continue to see that religion takes a fair share of what determines our sentiments, and so on and so forth. So rather than talking about the system alone, which of course I believe we have to discuss, we should still go intrinsically to find out how those systems so far, even in Nigeria that have been practicing federalism in the last, the 1960 or so, that after we got independence, how have we fared in terms of the implementation of this system of government?
Mr. Okawo, let me paint a scenario for you. I was with a woman yesterday in the morning when I was coming to work, and she said, please, ma, is there a way by which you can help us broadcast that people should not take the palliative that the federal government is giving out? Because they're just going to give us, it's like they're just using the feather to drop drops of water in our mouths. What do we want to do with that money? And then the people who are going to even give her the palliatives are the ones who are going to take the most part of it. And then she now said, look at me now. I've retired for a long time. I've not gotten my gratuity. I'm not doing. In a situation whereby things like that happen in a country, the citizens are not even sure that what the government has promised to give them will get to them. In a situation whereby somebody worked for 35 years and is not able to get his pension, is not able to get his gratuity on time. I mean, are we now talking about the system of government or the people who are, you know, our mentality, as he said? What's your take?
We are just saying the same thing in different ways. Let me explain to you. I say system of governance. If the system is good, it will have taken care of many things. Take for instance, if you have a standard, if the system works, you don't care who is the head. You don't care as long as the system works. After 35 years, you get your pension.
How do you make the system work?
That
When, look at the National Assembly. How do we make the system work when somebody who has been governor is now the
Senator president.
Senate president or something like that,
I'm not even
yes.
talking about Senate. I'm talking about this advisor on security, Ribadu.
Ribadu.
Why do we have to? I mean,
Recycle, that's what I'm saying. Who appointed them? Isn't that somebody that got elected?
Do you think that can make the system work?
Let me tell you, I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no. Okay. But I'm going to tell you if people actually, people determine the kind of government they want. I've said it that if you get what you want from the system, for instance, after your retirement, you get your benefits. You are living a good life. What concerns you about who is the president? But why are we complaining? It's because what belongs to us didn't get to us, and that is what there's disconnect. There's disconnect.
Look at what happened in Ghana with Jerry Rawlings when he came there, and you know Ghanaians were here before.
Yes.
They were here before, and that's why we used to call the Ghana must go when we said they should go back to their country.
Yes.
And now look at their economy. There was a time I went to Ghana, that was around 2010, 2008, 2010. And I got to Ghana, I changed Naira to their cedis. And all of us in the bus were saying we're now millionaires because I think 10,000 Naira then was 2 million cedis in Ghanaian money. But their money is now better than Nigeria's, than our Naira.
Yes.
Because they took drastic steps that could save them.
Jerry Ghana, what kind of government did they practice?
Jerry Rawlings came as a...
Jerry Rawlings as a military man. Yeah. What I'm telling you is about the system. Are you getting it now? And it's like the argument between hen and a cock. Which one comes first? Is it the hen or is it the cock? What works for us? Is it the system or the individuals holding the system? Me, I believe that we should have a very standard system that will guarantee smooth transition, that will guarantee good life to people, not individuals. Let me tell you, individuals will come and go. You die. But if there's in the US, who cares who is the president? The man who is there is about 84 years and is seeking the election because the systems that have been put in place are functioning.
How do we make our own function?
That is why we need the structure. We need the structuring.
How do we put an end to all these coup d'etats?
Thank you.
How do we make our own function?
Succinctly put, it's not anything. It's not rocket science. The truth of the matter is this: one, we have had a system of government for over 62 years, for instance, in Nigeria, and then if we sit back to assess ourselves vis-a-vis or juxtapose ourselves with the other countries, some of these countries now that are well developed, we had independence at the same time. The truth is that at the moment, what I believe is wrong with most of the African continent in terms of governance is not about even Africans per se. We are yet to look inwards, knowing fully well that even the colonialists that we thought had left us free still have that stranglehold on us in terms of economic prosperity of every nation. Little example, why would it mean that till tomorrow, Naira should not be a unit of currency in the valuables of what it can do in terms of services and goods and international trade in what it exports, have its own capacity to determine its unit? more than when it's determined by other countries. Why is it that even euros in most of these European countries, they still have a way? The truth of the matter is that, yes, of late, BRICS, which is a formation of some countries, they are coming together now. They are forming a block hold. And if we are careful to analyze, we will see that Brazil, India, Russia, and South Africa and all that, and China, they are coming together, and some other countries are coming up with them, just in form to break that stranglehold of dollar, which it has over so many countries. And that's why the Chinese are moving at a very faster pace in terms of technology, in terms of human capital development, and all others. In fact, in foreign direct investments in most nations of Africa, you have the Chinese there coming in and exporting their own, human capital into all these other countries. It's a globalized economy at this moment. And Africa must situate themselves, especially Nigeria that calls itself the giant of Africa. And all this must happen in a swift to be able to curtail the wildfire that is going on. Check out why ECOWAS, for instance, has not been able to quell, in spite of the fact that Niger is still on and ECOWAS is, threatening brimstone and all that to get this guy down.
That's an affront. The one in Gabon.
Gabon.
It's
so
an affront.
now, even while that is
No.
ongoing,
Gabon is not part of ECOWAS.
it's not. Okay. Even while that is ongoing, Gabon now has come up, So it means that it's spreading. And AU, which is the African Union, are still unable, to quell some of these things. Why am I saying that? The stranglehold of our colonialists, they are still there. They are not coming to take us as slaves before. That will take us to sugarcane plantation to do. It is different right now. The first thing they do is to impoverish our mind and make sure we still have that colonial mentality of slavery, which is economic. And if that is not taken very seriously, which of course is one of the things that Gaddafi did in Libya, and he paid dearly for it. At this moment, we are supposed to be one, apart from theft of our oil, for instance, we are supposed to be one of the largest, exporter of crude and all that. But at the moment, it is what OPEC still determines. Why should OPEC continue to determine for us? So people are rising up in a global phenomenon right now to make challenges beyond. So once your country has not aligned properly, because now we are talking about taking over from the military, they're taking over in some of these countries, while some other countries have even left system of governance behind. They have moved into technology, they have moved into human capital development, they are changing the face of the age. Robotic engineering, artificial intelligence, quite a number of things are developing, and mankind is moving faster at that pace. And that's what I expect the African continent, rather than going on military incursion, to adapt and change the system and make sure it works.
Final notes.
Yes, I will just repeat myself that our leaders must prevent anything that will make people to demand for military incursion into government in Nigeria. But once the system of election is okay and the elected people do according to the people, what the people want, and our economy is good, I think we will be good as a country.
Briefly, Mr. Olajobi, okay. What do you think the people should do?
At this moment, is a wake-up call for the people to actually, we have democracy here, so it's to actually get the government more engaged, put them on their toes, have constructive criticisms, so that the dividends of democracy that they have promised are given back to the people. And that's all the synergy, I think, in collaborative efforts would make us have a good standard of living in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The program is Viewpoint on OSRC TV, and of course, if you just joined us, you missed a lot. I have two gentlemen here who have talked with me about the political happenings in Africa of recent, where coups are now seen as the order of the day in some African countries. The recent being Gabon, just a few weeks after the ECOWAS was just reacting to the takeover by the military juntas in Niger Republic, and we have talked about the reasons why these things happen, especially in Africa, the sit tight in power mentality of African leaders, and of course the incursion, the foreign incursion from all over the world, maybe foreign countries, Western countries, who believe that we still have to continue to answer to them, despite taking independence from them. Well, that's our package for today on Viewpoint, and thank you so much, Mr. Olajobi, for coming.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for
Top
having
of
me.
row.
Thank you very much for having me.
My name is Adibimbe.